Hey guys, today I decided that it would be a good time to show you just the basics of painting. Anything related to car painting is this video will be about, and I'll give you a step-by-step guide of how I do it. The very first thing I do is I take my waterborne cleaner. I have this tailgate right here off of a Ford, but my cleaner is just isopropyl alcohol and water, about 2-to-1 water to alcohol mix. Works really good, nice, cheap, effective cleaner to get this panel clean. Now you want to use a waterborne cleaner because it'll help get rid of any dirt and dust and anything that isn't really super oily. It'll come off a lot easier. Definitely don't be afraid to use this stuff. You want that panel to be nice and wet. So you really want to bring anything that you want off the panel up to the surface, so you got to make sure it's wet because it'll help pull it off the surface. And some guys say, well, only wipe in one direction. The way I think is you can kind of wipe both directions, it's fine, never had an issue, but try and keep it even and uniform and try not to wipe over the same spot too many times. Like going back and forth, kind of like a 50% overlap. As you can see, you get any dust and stuff and a bunch of crap that you don't want in your paint. Let's go over it a second time, just to make sure you've got everything. Yeah, the waterborne cleaner does leave a bit of a film after it dries, so we're going to go over it with a solvent-borne wax and grease remover. But other than that, I'm just using, I got these rags for free. I don't even know what they're called. They're just in a plain brown box, but they are pretty nice. Some sort of lint-free cloth. Microfiber cloth works good too. I use that for many years. Kind of switched back to this because I found that you get a job that's full of wax and silicones and stuff. It sticks to your rag and it can transfer over to your next job. This is the wax and grease remover I'll be using. SX320 PPG product, works great, fast evaporating. Again, you'll want to put this on nice and wet. So grab a new rag. I always use 2 different rags when I'm going from water to solvent-borne cleaner. Again, get this panel nice and wet. Really try and draw all the contaminants you don't want off the surface. Just, again, wipe it, get a consistent pattern, trying to clean everything as best you can. This stuff will kind of remove that film that can be left behind from your waterborne cleaner. I have used the AC Delco glass cleaner, worked pretty good. I've used whatever glass cleaner my jobber will have that's a PPG product. I have used that before, and I mean, for the cost of my waterborne cleaner that I make myself, it's well worth it. Just use isopropyl alcohol because you can get that anywhere. Yeah, we'll let that flash off, we'll blow it off, and we'll tack it. So this tack rag I'm using just a green, I believe it was a Gerson brand. Again, you're just going, making sure you get everything nice, consistent wipe. Don't need to wipe over it too much. If you wipe it too much, there's a bit of a waxy feel. This waxy feel can end up going on your panel, and it might leave a weird mark, and it might screw with your base coat a little bit. But now that tailgate is been degreased, waterborne, solvent-borne, blown off, tacked off, it is now ready for paint. So I'm in my mixing room. There's a couple things I want to mention before we do anything in the booth, and that's PPE, personal protective equipment. Got myself a paint suit, covered head to toe. You can't get covered any more than this. It's got a hood, so when I put my mask on, right, it gets all of my neck, gets everything covered, because I use a fresh air mask. This covers my whole face. Oh, I need to change that cover there. But this, just a 3M mask, goes over top of everything. I got an air line that plugs into here, and a pump that feeds fresh, clean air from outside of the booth, nice filtered air, into my mask. Another thing, gloves, latex gloves, nitro gloves. I like these guys. They seem to hold up to paint thinner when I'm cleaning the gun better than a latex glove, and they just seem to fit my hands really nice. So I've got my job pulled up on the screen. I've got my sealer, my base, and my clear here. I'll be using ECS series of sealer. This one job will call for a G6, which is kind of not the darkest gray, but it's kind of a medium dark gray. So when I'm mixing my sealer, I'll put about 50-50 black to white. It should give me that right G shade I need. And just to show you, the ECS 81 that gets set on the screen, and the 87 is your dark gray, which is, you consider this a G7. So the black is definitely more powerful than the white, so going half and half will probably give me that nice G6 sealer color I want. You definitely want to try and match your sealer color in the G shade spectrum to about what the color looks like. So if it's a silver, a G5 is a gray that looks a lot like silver. If it's black, you go G7. If it's white, you're going G1 for white. But anyways, I'm using my SATA cups. Love these things. Filters are in the lid. Everything gets strained, so I know that everything that goes into my cup is perfectly clean. Now you don't need a fancy computer and scale to always mix your sealer. Your base coat, you're going to need a scale because everything's going to be weighed out, but your sealer and clears, they technically can be stick mixed as well. This sealer is mixed 4 to 1 to 1, where this stick is 3 to 1 to 1, so it's as matter as following. Well, if you think when you're mixing your color that you need about to that number 3 there on the right side, well, what you're going to do is this number 3 on the left side is going to be where your sealer goes. The middle column is going to be to the next 3 for your hardener. Then on the right side column is going to be your reducer to finish it all off, and then you'll end up with a perfect 3 to 1 to 1 mix ratio. Again, follow your data sheets on how to mix whatever product you're using, and make sure you follow them and read them to a T, because they know a hell of a lot more than you and I do. So we're in the booth, got the sealer mixed up. Let's go over some basics of painting. Now the idea is you're going to want to be about 4 to 6 inches away from the panel you're spraying. Essentially, there's my hand for scale. Call that about 4 inches, so if you kind of just do it somewhere between a fist and that is about how you want to be for your distance along the panel. When you're doing something like this, once you get your distance, you can kind of use the gun and the hose to line up against your arm. That'll help keep your gun perpendicular to the panel as you're spraying and coming across. Another tip, when you're spraying, you want to start off the panel, pull the trigger, and start going and just more practice, you'll be able to figure out the speed you need to go. When you get to the end, finish off, let go of the trigger. And to start over again, you're going to slide up a bit, about 75% overlap, trigger on, and go. Finish off the panel, trigger off, on the panel, trigger off, trigger on the panel, off the panel, trigger off. About 75% overlap, nice, even, consistent spray pattern, and it should lay down really nice for you. This is the line that feeds into my belt. Gives me that fresh air, as you can see. And then this other line will end up going into my paint gun for the spraying. So get the hood up, protect everything, get your full face mask on, pinch it up, line that up. Ready to go. So I got my gun set at 20 psi. Get your edges first, so that way you know that you have them covered. You won't end up being forgotten. Again, just 4 to 6 inches away. Be consistent. If you're going too slow, you risk puddling your material or getting runs. If you go too fast, it's going to look dry. You can have lots of dry spray and might look a little rougher than you want it to be because it didn't have a chance to flow out. Depending on your distance of your gun will depend on how fast you're going to want to spray. So I was about 6 inches away from that panel. I'm trying to get that sealer to lay down as smooth as possible. The sealer is really good at self-leveling too. It's a really good sealer. Definitely my favorite that I've ever used. And I will show you what it looks like after it's flashed off. If anybody's wondering about how to set up a spray gun and the basics of using a spray gun for automotive finishes, I will be going over that in another video. But for now, it's just kind of the basics of how to spray to get your colors and sealers and clear coats to all look really nice. I will take care of that another time. So the sealer should be dry. Put just one medium wet coat and sprayed it at about 20 psi out of my gun. Depending on the gun, your pressure can change. Let's take a look here. As you can see, it's laid out nice and flat and smooth. Now at this stage, you can start putting your base coat on. I will tack it off before I put my base coat on. In between every coat, from sealer to base to second coat to base and third if need be, I'm going to tack off the panel. And let's say you put your sealer down, let's say you have a little dirt nib right there. If you take some 1000 grit sandpaper, I'll show you what I use. I have this foam backed Norton 1000 grit sandpaper. So if I have a dirt nib, I will lightly sand that, and then you gotta tack it all off, and then you can put your base coat down. Now you can do that with your base coat as well when it's fully dry, but you got to remember every time you sand it you have to put another coat of base on. So if you are just figuring it out and you want a clean job, sand out some of your nibs as you go. It'll help a lot later on if you're sanding and polishing it later. So here is the color that I'm spraying. Now I got the computer that tells me how to do it. There's apps on your phone for some companies like mine, PPG. I can mix a color based off my phone and go on the computer. I can print out the color mix formula and weigh everything out. As long as you have all the tinters, should be able to do it. And I'll get this in the gun. Now there's a reason why I mixed in this cup before I put it in my SATA cup, is because I want to strain it to make sure that if there's any gunk that's in that paint, it doesn't end up in my cup. This comes back to, like I said in the booth there, sanding out dirt nibs and keeping it clean. If you strain everything, your paint jobs are guaranteed to be cleaner. So you might as well buy a sleeve of strainers if you're going to be painting. They cost pennies on the dollar, and it'll save you a whole bunch of time later on for cleaning up any dirt and dust nibs. So all of these strainers I use are a 190 micron, and the filters that go into the lid are going to be a 125 micron. So this is not as fine as a 125, but that's fine. It'll get rid of most of everything, and this is just to make sure that it gets everything at the end of the day. I don't want this filter in the lid to become clogged, because then all of a sudden you don't have any fluid going through your lid and into your gun, and that's just not good. As you can see all that crud. Where's my finger? Right in there. That's all that stuff that you don't want in your cup, because if it's in your cup, it's going to clog this filter, and it might even get through the filter. If it gets through this filter, all of that stuff is now over your nice paint job that you just did. We're trying to avoid that the best we can. So again, base coat's in the gun. We spraying this at about 18 psi, 4 to 6 inches away. The same rules apply. Sealer to base coat and 75% overlap, and I'll show you how it's done. It's good practice to have a spray-o card. So when you're in the booth, you can check it to the vehicle, any adjacent panels on the vehicle. I use a quick check spray to give it a bit of a shine to kind of mimic clear coat. Gives me a good idea when I take my sun gun in the booth of what the color's actually looking like. Base is down now. This is a waterborne paint PPG Enviro base. Now it looks like absolute crap right now. We'll let it dry. We're gonna need to blow it to help evaporate the water out of the paint, and we'll see what it looks like after it's flashed off. So it's flashed off. You can still see the sealer underneath, which just means we gotta put more coats of base on there. I'm probably gonna need 3 at least, just to get the coverage that I need. Yeah, we'll get to it. Now, if you don't really want to start spraying your project, or you want a little more practice before you get into it, a good tip is go to a dollar store, buy some cheap acrylic paint, and then reduce it down with water to be about the same consistency as the paint that you're going to be using on your own vehicle or your own project. And just spray a cardboard box. Make sure you know exactly how to set up your gun and the distance you need and the speed you need to be at, and just play around. If you're really trying to learn how to do something, find out what you can't do. Find out the limitations of your skills. Find out the limitations of the equipment and the guns you're using. Find out even just the limitations of paint in general. That's where that cheap acrylic paint that you can get at the dollar store is a good tool to use, because it's cheap, you can get it anywhere, so it doesn't really matter if you screw it up, because you're just painting, say, a cardboard box anyways, or a scrap door, or a piece of metal or a piece of tin that you have. Alright, so I got my base coat down. 3 coats is just enough coverage. All my metallics are sitting down just right. Kind of has a flat looking finish to it. Very dry now, as you can see. I'm moving on to clear coat. The same rules apply for clear coat for distance of the gun. Your speed might change a little bit, but the same basic general rules will carry over for all steps in the paint process. So I've got the clear on the computer, cup and strainer on the scale. The clear I'm using is going to be the Omni 262. Very affordable clear, shines really nice, and it polishes really easy. This will be the hardener that I'm using. Then the reducer, I'm using the Slow MR296. It'll give me a good chance to have the clear to flow out, and it'll look beautiful when I'm done. Typically with the clear, I'm about an inch or so closer than I am with the base coat. I find that you don't have to worry about getting your metallics to lay down right, but you kind of still want to be far enough away where you're not going to get runs or puddle up your clear. So I'm just really trying to lay it down as heavy as I can without having the clear start to run or puddle up on me. And here I'm just checking how much clear I sprayed on that first coat and just making sure I have enough for the second. So I got the first coat of clear down. I'm going to be putting the second coat on a little bit heavier just to make sure it all flows out nicely and it looks super clean and straight and shiny and slick. Everybody wants this to look like a paint job, right? So I'll probably slow down my gun a little bit, do a little bit more of an overlap, so just a bit more than a 75%, call it 80, 85 even if I'm really trying to hide some dirt or dust or make it look like a show car. Yeah, let's get to it. And just remember to always start off the panel and finish off the panel. So trigger on before you start spraying on the panel. When you get off the panel, trigger off. And there it is. Final product. It's not perfect because I'm the one that did it, so it's not going to be 100% perfect, but it looks pretty good. Got a couple of nibs here and there that I'll take care of another time. Just as long as you follow the data sheets on the products and how long to wait in between coats, everything should turn out just fine. This is still pretty fresh. Yeah, that is basics of painting in the auto industry, how to paint a car. So if you like this kind of content, I'm hopefully going to do a little bit more of it, trying to share what I know about this industry and painting in general. If anybody has any questions, let me know.